Started.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Alexa. All right, everybody, welcome in. This is the lovely Roxanne. Here we go. Let's get this all pulled up. Excellent, excellent. All right. We are joined by Miss Roxanne McCarty O'Kane, a multi-award winning storyteller whose unique approach has helped thousands of aspiring authors bring their nonfiction books to life with clarity, connection, and purpose. A prolific ghostwriter, author, mentor, and journalist, she is the creator of the Ignite and Write series, empowering writers worldwide to craft their manuscripts with confidence and impact. Known for engaging and relatable style, Roxanne delivers practical tools and inspiration that demystifies the storytelling and sparks creativity. And Roxanne has been a steadfast supporter of the Women in Publishing Summit and our community. So I definitely want to say thank you for that. I am going to step back and let you take over this, and I will just handle the moderating and the chat and the Q&A at the end, if I'm assuming we'll have time.
Absolutely. We love a
All
good
right.
Q&A. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Well, I'm going to try and share my screen because that's always a bit of fun. Let's hope that, there we go. Hopefully I can get that up as a proper slideshow. All right. Is that all showing up on everyone's screens okay?
Yes, looks
Awesome.
great.
Wonderful, thank you. I was hoping I'd be able to read the comments at the same time, but it looks like I've got a choice of one of the or the other. So hold tight with your questions, and I look forward to answering those at the end of our session today. So thank you so much, first of all, to Alexa and the team at Women in Publishing for having me along again today. You've captured it beautifully. I am a huge fangirl of this network and everything that you guys do to bring this amazing global community together. So thank you for having me. I love this particular topic, beating the blank page, because it is the great equalizer. So no matter whether you're a first time author, you're doing this for the very first time and it's all a bit new and exciting, and maybe a little bit scary, or even if you're an international best-selling author and you've got multiple books out there, the blank page still has the power to, I guess, take you down a peg or two. So it's really important to get some strategies and some skills behind you so that when, and I say when because it will happen, when that blank page is looking at you and that cursor is blinking away, sort of taunting you a little bit, you know how to get the upper hand. So yeah, I can't see the comments, but I understand that people in this community can be at all different stages, especially in terms of mindset when it comes to writing your book. Quite often I see, people who are stuck in that place where they actually have no idea how to write their book. Maybe they have a semi-formed message but aren't quite clear on what it is that they want to achieve with their book. And sometimes it's just the mindset demons that jump in and they're, telling you you're not good enough to write your book, or, who wants to hear from me anyway? And do I really know enough about this to write a book? All the things that can jump up and stop us from achieving our dream of being a goal. Now, I've realized I've talked all this time and haven't said to you that there is a QR code on the screen. You're welcome to use that to download a workbook from our session today. If you're live, that might take a few minutes to come through, but you can definitely grab a piece of paper and a pen and it will work just as beautifully. If you are watching the replay later, of course, yeah, you can pause this, download the workbook, and you've got it there ready to go. So yeah, choose your own adventure. I will put a disclaimer here that for those of you beautiful souls who are watching live with me today, I am going to try and cram as much information into this session as possible because I've only got a short time with you. So I haven't built in time for you to do the exercises, but I 100% recommend that even after our session today, you just carve out maybe 15 minutes extra to get these concepts locked down for you. So the whole point of my session today is to give you confidence and clarity, because I can tell you with great certainty that it's when you have a lack of confidence and or clarity that the blank page will win. So my whole aim, my goal for you all today is to make sure that you have that clarity that is so incredibly vital to give you the confidence to move through any and all hurdles that come up in your writing journey. All right, so we are going to cover just a few things today. I've tried to cherry pick the best of the best so that we can maximize our time together. The first two things, or the first bullet point up here, is to make sure that you have the two most incredible filters for your writing journey, and I'm going to reveal what they are, and you will understand how important they are. So no matter whether you haven't written a single word yet, or even if you're halfway through, and maybe you're feeling a bit stuck, or as I said, maybe if you've written several books already, these two filters will be the best things that you can keep up your sleeve going forward. We'll also look at how to position your book in the market. So we'll just touch on this very briefly, but looking at what sort of nonfiction subgenre your book falls into, as well as, what your unique selling point or your USP is. Because once again, it just helps with that clarity piece. And then, of course, the techniques for busting through writer's block, because that's the overall promise here. So we're going to make sure that we deliver. So just so that you know you're in safe hands today, my name is Roxy. I have been a nonfiction book ghostwriter since for about 7 years now. My previous life, I was a journalist, so working in print media since 2007. I do live in Australia, so if you detect an accent, that's where I am. I'm on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. I've worked a lot with local print media here and also global magazines. And then, decided media wasn't for me anymore and transitioned into the book world. And let me tell you, it has been the most amazing ride. I've been ghostwriting now full-time for 7 years in the nonfiction genre, and I've been able to work with people from all walks of life, writing books for them or alongside them, which is an absolute privilege to be able to help people to get their stories out who otherwise would be able to get them out. And about 5 years ago, I started also mentoring people who wanted to write their own books but just needed a little bit of guidance. So that's where Ignite and Write came to the fore. And so I have been loving life, loving this industry and this community, and have also managed to rack up a few business awards along the way, which is pretty exciting, for Businesswoman of the Year here in our region, and also for creative industries, which was definitely very fun, because it's great to see or give ghostwriting and writing a platform in the business sphere, because I think sometimes that's very overlooked. So I'm very excited that that's, a huge focal point for women in publishing going forward. So kudos to you guys for really nurturing that in the author community. I am also a 3-time author, or 2.5-time author. My third book will be released in the next few months. But I have created a series of books that can help aspiring authors to get the tools that they need. So I have the Mindful Author, which is all about mindset, the Structured Author, which is all about how to write and structure your book, and soon to be released, the Published Author, which focuses on the publishing options and marketing as well. So the first two are already available on Amazon. You can get them as a paperback or ebook, and if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read them for free. So that's always good to tap into anything that's free as well. But it's not about me today. This is about you guys and how we can help to move you past any blank pages that may arise. So I'm going to launch straight in. As I said, I'm mindful of everyone's time today, and I want to make sure that I get out as much as I can to help you with your writing henceforth. So the first filter is actually to determine, and for those of you who did come along to my Writing Women in Publishing Summit presentation, you will see a little bit of overlap here. I'm going to be upfront about that. And that's because it's so important to build incredibly strong foundations. So I like to use the analogy of a house. So you don't, the builders don't just come along to a site, chuck up some walls and a roof and walk off, and and you've got a house. What they do is they dig below the surface. So they need to, dig down, create solid foundations, put in the plumbing, put in all the things that are going to make this a long-term functional house. And then when the walls and the ceiling go up, you've got a house for decades or centuries. That's the kind of path that we're looking for. So if you have done some of these exercises with me in the Women in Publishing Summit, I urge you to maybe even do them again, because you would have evolved since then. Your understanding of your story would have evolved since then. You might have a much deeper understanding of where it is that you want to go. So these are still just as relevant for you as it is for those who are joining me for the first time. So I encourage you to jump right in. Let's build these really solid foundations. So the first filter is, what's it all for? Like, what is the purpose of me being in this session? Why am I being called to write a book? And when we talk about surface level reasons, if we use that analogy, we're on the grass, we haven't dug deep for the foundations yet. When I ask people, why are you writing a book? Why are you at this session? I quite often get the very same three responses for those who haven't done the foundational works, disclaimer. So the first is that, my friends told me to write a book. I've got such an amazing story. And every time I say something, they say, you should write a book. So I'm curious to know if any of you have had that happen, a friend or a family member. They're like, you've got an amazing story, you should write a book. The second that I hear probably way too much is a psychic told me one day I would write a book. So I should be paying commissions to psychics at some stage, but I hear that quite a lot. And then the third, that the first two are very externally driven. And then we get to the third, and this is where people start to think from within. And that is that they say, maybe I think this could help people. Maybe what I know or what I've experienced could help people. And that's where we start to get a bit of a peek below the grass, a bit of a glimpse below, and we can start to see that internal driver. And that's what we're really gunning for, because let me tell you, when you are coming at your book writing journey or your experience, because someone else has said you should do it, or that you're hearing from outside of yourself that it would be a good idea, it's actually really, really hard to keep pushing forward and get over the hurdles that do present themselves as you are writing your book. So what we want to do with our first exercise and our first filter is to get to the core of your why. So I know your why is a buzzword, it gets used a lot, but there is a method to this, and I'm going to take you through why this is so important. So first of all, we know it's to cut below the surface. Second of all, this is not my technique. It definitely is not. And you've probably seen this in other areas and maybe done this in a different context before. But why it's so important is that, or why I guess it's so effective, sorry, is that it works. So this concept has been around for many, many decades. It was popularized, however, by Sakichi Toyota, who is one of the big guns behind the Toyota Motor Group, so cars, right? And the reason that this was implemented in that business is because, say Mrs. Jones was coming in with her car, it was making a bit of a rattling sound, and the mechanic would have a look at it, try to attempt to fix it and send it away. But then Mrs. Jones would come back because the rattling sound hadn't been fixed. All right. So the mechanic was fixing what was the core not the core, sorry, the surface level possibility that was causing the rattle. So there were cars that kept coming back because the issue wasn't being fixed the first time. Now, if any of you are business owners, you would know time and money are two very, very precious resources that you don't want to be wasting. So Sakichi decided to implement this technique into the business and said, okay, well, you need to ask why 5 times. So say Mrs. Jones comes in and she's got that rattling sound. Full disclaimer, I'm not a mechanic, but I will attempt to go through the 5 why with you. So the first why is this rattling sound being made? And the mechanic might look and find that there's 2 rings that are rubbing together. That's creating the sound. So then he would ask, well, why are the rings rubbing together? And when he investigates, he realizes that the rings slid down a pipe and it's not actually where it should be. Okay. Then he would ask, well, why has it slid down? Oh, there's actually some surface level rust or some surface rust where that ring should sit, and it's corroded a connection. So that's why it's fallen down. Now, why has that fallen? Like, why has that corrosion been there? Oh, look just up there. There's a container that's been leaking some fluid onto that pipe that's caused the corrosion. And why has that happened? Because Mrs. Jones has a 30-year-old car and the plastic has perished. Okay, so now we've got the 5 whys. The mechanic can go in, he can fix all that up, get the new container, and Mrs. Jones goes home happy and doesn't come back. So Sakichi Toyota is happy and everyone's a winner. Okay, you might be sitting there thinking, what the heck does that have to do with book writing? Let me tell you, it helps you to cut through the surface level why. So we're no longer writing for someone else. It comes down to writing for self. Now I'm going to, your first activity is to do this 5 why for yourself. As I said, ordinarily I'd carve time out to do this in real time, but I'm going to trust you implicitly that you are going to take this activity and run with it after our session today so that you can give it the time that it needs. It's incredibly important to understand what's driving you. So I 100% encourage you to do this. I'm going to give you a quick example with one of my clients, Stu Darling. He's based in New Zealand, as you can see. He's a former military officer, a British military officer actually, who wrote his book on leadership. And I do the 5 whys with all of my clients because it helps me to get a really strong understanding of what it is that they want to achieve and what their core driver is. So I have, with his permission, written down his 5 whys, and I'm just going to run through them quickly with you now so that you can see how the responses can evolve. And let me just give a disclaimer here. There's no right or wrong. There's no right why and no wrong why. We're all unique. Our stories are all unique. So don't feel like you need to achieve a certain end with this. Respect the process and what that looks like for you. So Stu's first why, when I asked him, was to I'm just going to read this so I don't fluff it up, was to capture the framework and protect his IP, so his intellectual property. Now, for those of you who are writing for business, publishing a book is actually a really great way to copyright what you teach because it's covered under that with publishing. So it's like 2 birds, which is awesome. When I asked him why it was important to capture that, he said to grow the business and reach more people. Obviously, he's only one person, and a book can go global very easily and very quickly. When I asked him why that was important, he said, because the world needs better leaders, and I want future generations to have the skills they need to lead in any circumstance. Okay, so we're sort of starting to get into the I, so cutting below the surface. And I asked him why that was important. And he said, because I struggled for a long time to find the leader that I needed. Okay, so now we're getting down to the core purpose. Because when I asked him why that had happened or why that was important to him, he said because his father took his own life when he was 10 and he had to learn the hard way how to find and become a good leader. So that internal driver, when you let that sink in, that is so much more powerful than, yeah, it would be good for my business, right? So you can see how quickly you can get to a purpose that is so strong that it's going to push you through anything, even a blank page. All right, so this is why it's so important for you to do this activity. 100% recommend that you do this, and get in touch with me afterwards. You know, I love chatting to people. You're more than welcome to send me your why, or anything that you count as a win from the session. I'd love to hear about it. So that is your first filter, is your why and the book's purpose. So we're going to move on to the second filter, and that is to determine who is it all for. So this is also a great question to ask yourself if you haven't before, and that's to identify who your ideal reader is. Now, you might be in the camp where I find a lot of first-time authors, where particularly if you've got a subject matter that is relevant to everyone, you might have this really great passion and go, well, my book's for everyone and anyone can take away something from my book. And I love that energy. I love that passion. But what happens is that when you write for everyone, you actually connect with no one. So what that means is that, you know, when you're pouring your heart and soul and your lived experience and your knowledge into this book, this amazing resource that you're creating, this legacy piece, if you don't actually connect with anyone, it's all for nothing. So the core foundations of my first book, The Mindful Author, is to teach the ACT process, which is authenticity, connection, and transformation. And so this really hones in on the connection point. So we want to connect not with everyone, because that's actually really, really hard to do, but we want to connect with an ideal someone. All right. So what that means is, and some people actually freak out when I say that. Like, pick one person that you want to connect with, and they go, but what about everyone else? So I don't know if you've seen a bell curve since high school statistics, but here it is. And there's your ideal reader right up the top at the pinnacle. Now I'm going to demonstrate why it's okay to pick one person, okay? It's not the end of the world. If you pick your ideal reader, what it actually does is it gives you, as a writer, so much more clarity, because you know exactly who you're writing for. So first of all, that becomes the second most powerful filter. You can pass a lifetime of knowledge and lived experience through, because you can say, does my ideal reader need to know this? Yes, they do. It goes in the book. No, they don't. Oh, I can just pop that to the side for now. It's not relevant. Okay. But by picking an ideal reader, you're not putting them in a container and excluding everyone else. Okay. Because there will still be people. For example, if you've chosen your ideal reader to be a particular gender, there will still be people from different genders that will pick up your book. There will be people from different careers or different industries that will pick up your book. There will be people that, that are searching on Amazon and just stumble across your book because it's come up in their search, that will pick up your book. There will be people that are just curious to learn more about what it is that you're teaching or sharing. You know, they're in for the journey, that will pick up your book. There will be people who love the title and that's brought them in, or people who've just seen your book cover on a shelf that are like, oh yeah, I want to give that a go. So there will be people way outside of your ideal reader that will still pick up your book. So please, please, please don't be afraid of this strategy. What it does, as I said, as a writer, it gives you so much more clarity to know who you're writing for. I've actually gone a step further and named my ideal client. So when I sit down to write, ideal reader, sorry, when I sit down to write, I write for Kelly. So, that really helps to lift a lot of the burden too of being a writer. If you're feeling that being a writer or being an author feels heavy, or it puts on a pile of expectations, or, you know, makes you fall into that perfectionism of needing to write the perfect sentence, all those things. You can go, actually, I'm just going to sit down and this is how I would tell this particular part of my story to Kelly, and it feels so much lighter. So give it a go. Yeah, we'll see if your ideal reader has a name. Again, I'd love to hear that from you too. Share that with me when the time comes. Now, to show this in real life, because I am a storyteller at heart as well, I wanted to give you an example of a client of mine who is Dr. Judy. So Judy wrote a thesis in the 1990s, so some time ago, on the dynamics that happen within domestic violence relationships. Now, this is such a big topic here in Australia. I'm sure it probably is globally, that statistics are going up rather than down. So all of the strategies that are being implemented are not being super effective. So Dr. Judy was like, okay, the time is now. I need to re-release my thesis, but I want it to be written in a format that everyone can, you know, can learn from and follow and take something away from. So because this is such a serious topic as well, like obviously Judy was like, this is for everyone, like everyone needs to know this information. So again, there's that beautiful passion coming in. But Dr. Judy quickly found that by writing for everyone, it was actually becoming very, very hard to try and capture all of the things that would satisfy each of those different audiences. So unfortunately, I can't see the chat, so I can't see kind of do a bit of an activity with you here. But I'd love you to think about, you know, who some of the ideal readers are that could be, yeah, that could take something away from a book like this. And I can list off a few. I'm sure there's more that you can think of. But, you know, first of all, we have the people within the relationships that are experiencing that. We have professionals such as counselors or psychologists. We have law enforcement, so police officers, judicial system, people that work as lawyers and judges. We have the lawmakers. We have the families and friends supporting or trying to support the people within these relationships. We also have, you know, young people. How can we get to them when they're before they're having serious relationships as a preventative measure? So, you know, there's 7 or 8 just with me, and I'm sure that there's more that you've been able to come up with too. So you can see with those 8 potential ideal readers how trying to communicate to all of them in one book is very, very hard. How you would speak to a police officer is very different to how you would speak to a concerned parent or friend, you know. So, and this is a very real problem that a lot of authors have, because they're trying to write for everyone. So this is why we do this exercise. So Judy was able to, you know, painstakingly, I must admit, and I know how hard it is, refine it down to focusing on having her ideal reader as being a concerned parent or family friend, sorry, someone who is supporting a person that's in a domestic violence relationship. So by honing in on those ideal readers, she was able to really, yeah, get the message across in a storytelling way that was easy to understand and that was relevant, brought in all the relevant information that they needed, knowing that there will still be, you know, police officers, there will still be counselors, there will still be people who have come out the other side of those domestic violence relationships. All of those people would still be able to pick up her book and take something away from it. But it has made her writing journey so much easier because she's got that clarity. So there's that C word again, the clarity to know what to include and how to include it. So my second activity for you is to dive on in and have a look at who your ideal reader is. So there are some prompted questions here that you can use. But really it is just determining who this person is. It might be someone you already know and you can model your ideal reader after that person. It might be yourself from 10, 15, 20 years ago. You know, what did little Roxy need to know before this happened in her life? How could I have better been prepared if I'd known what I know now? You know, that old, you know, would I take my wisdom, and what would be possible if I took it back in time? You know, that old chestnut. So yeah, it could be someone you already know, could be you, could be someone completely made up. It could be a client that gave you great joy to be able to support. So just have a think about who that is. And once you have them locked in, yeah, give them a name if they don't already have one. And when I actually sit down to write and have my writing sessions, when I sit down, I think, okay, as I said, I'm going to write this for Kelly. How would I explain this to Kelly? And it helps you to slip so much more smoothly into that storyteller mode and just get the words out. Let the words flow. All right. So we are going to move into where does your book fit? So we've got those two incredibly powerful filters now. So whenever you're wondering what to include in my book, you know, where do I go from here? First, you would think, does this content or what I'm thinking about fit the purpose of my book? And does my ideal reader need to know that? Those two filters are going to absolutely streamline your writing process, trust me. So yeah, very excited for you to implement those. Now we're looking at where does your book fit. So finding where your book sits in the market. So I know that this is a whole other can of worms, but I know it's also really important to get an understanding of that for your foundational level, so that as you're writing, you are working towards that. It'll save you a heap of trouble down the road, trust me. So to do that, we're just going to really zoom through the nonfiction subgenres. I feel like because you guys live and breathe this with your writing, you probably are across most of these. So I'm just going to zoom right through for those of you who may be a little bit unsure about what some of the subgenres actually capture, so that you have that clarity that you need to pick where your book sits, and that's literally all you have to do for this activity, so that's nice and easy. So autobiography and memoir are the ones that are goodness, excuse me, are the two subgenres that get the most confused. That's what I wanted to say. So an autobiography is essentially someone's entire life story. So from when they're born to when they put the final full stop on their book. So you'll see that a lot with celebrities and people who have lived extraordinary lives. By the only difference between that and a memoir is that memoir takes two different tracks. So rather than being an entire life story, what you have is it's either a period of time. So you had Me at Ola and Eat, Pray, Love. You know, they are literally a few years of the author's lives, and they've really just honed in on that, and that's the focus of the whole book. For Dan and Sharon here, they have gone with more of a theme. So yes, it does cover the span of their life, but all of the stories they're putting in there are only relevant to their careers in both of this instance. So being a military nurse and being a footballer. So yeah, so the theme is what makes it a memoir rather than an autobiography, because it's not their entire life story. That's the only little nuance between the two. Biography kind of sits out here on its own little island, because while it is someone's life story, it's written by someone else. So yeah, you might recognize the Steve Jobs one there. You know, that became an international bestseller. So there is merit to writing biographies. But that's not a common one that I come across in my work, because everyone wants to write for themselves, which is wonderful. Listicles, this is probably a name we made up in our newsroom, to be fair, but I have applied it to any books that promise a certain number of something, so a list. So when we look at Zoe's book, you know, she promises 100 tips. for business owners. You can see very clearly the other ones have numbers in their titles as well. So top 10, top 40, top 100, anything like that. It means when you open it up, you're going to expect that number of, tips or tricks or something that's going to teach you. History, I mean, that speaks for itself, any stories that are linked into historical events. Self-help is often met with a / how-to. So these books are teaching books. So you know that when you pick up something from this genre, you are going to learn something, how to do something, how to think about something a certain way. And really these are geared towards educating and shifting perspectives, which is fun. Collaborative style of books. So you might see these out and about, very, very popular at the moment. And what they are is it's basically a collective of stories. So each chapter is contributed by a different author to create, an anthology of different voices, sometimes around the same topic, sometimes just from a certain community. So someone like me, that's a collaboration of autistic writers. So these are great for people who like a variety of different voices and, the opportunity to kind of dip your toe into a whole pile of different worlds. There is also academic is a nonfiction subgenre. I haven't made a big splash on that because I don't work in that realm. There's too many rules in that for me. But that does exist. And I have included narrative nonfiction here because I feel like there's a lot of confusion around what that is, especially for first timers. So narrative nonfiction is not a subgenre as such. What it is it's a writing style, and it encourages authors or writers to write as if they're writing a novel. So that really heavy storytelling, narrative-based style, but it's in the nonfiction realm. So everything that they're writing is true. So narrative nonfiction can sit alongside any of those subgenres that we've just covered. But it's mutually exclusive with academics. So that's why, they're polar opposites. So I hope that helps to clear that up. So your activity for that section is literally just to identify where your book sits in the subgenres, because that will help you with shaping the content for your book and give you another level of clarity for your writing process. If you have any questions around that, absolutely, make a little note and I'll be able to help you workshop that at the end of our session. So I will power on for now. The last thing, or the second last thing I wanted to cover is in the terms of USP and marketability is how does your book stand out? So what is it that's going to make your book fly in a sea of other books on the same genre or same subject? Because again, if we can play to those strengths and we can understand what it is about our work and our knowledge and our experience that is different, we can elevate that and really help. That helps with your clarity with the foundational elements as well. So I'm going to take you through a couple of examples here, and I was hoping these would pop up one at a time, but you get them both. The first is to look at the one, not just a tradie. So just to look at that from a perspective of, well, what is the ideal reader for this book? And you can see very clearly that John has identified tradies as his ideal reader. And when we look at the subtitle, which is Time-Tested Principles to Unlock Your Potential and Create Business Freedom and Flow, it's a big one, you can see that he could very easily have made this a book for any entrepreneur or every entrepreneur, right? It's a business book and it gives you these principles that are universal. But what John's done is he's really honed in on tradies or tradespeople. I don't know if we call them tradies here in Australia. People who work on the tools, so builders, plumbers, electricians, that sort of thing. And by doing that, what he's done is he's created a niche for his book. Yes, it's a business book, but it's a business book for tradies. So straight away, he's got a unique selling point. And what that has done for him as a writer is that he's able to use language that tradies use. So he's written it in a very easy to understand manner. You know, there's no big words. He can bring in relevant case studies or relevant stories that are on work sites, and really tailor it to that market. So very, very clever. Even down to the point where his illustrations inside, he's made little tradespeople with their toolboxes. It's very, very cute. So very, very clever marketing. So that's how he's been able to make himself unique in a world full of business books, right? So on the other side, we have Letters to Billy, which is a memoir. So you can see straight away from the subtitle, it's got a story of love, loss, lessons, and self-discovery. So we know that this is a personal journey. The fact that the word loss is in there, you know, that leads to some kind of grief. But with memoir, you know, you can have a little bit more leeway with your titles and things like that, because the back of the book, the back cover, is where the magic happens most of the time. So you can see, yeah, what sort of ideal readers she's wanting to draw in. Interestingly, when I was working with Leah, you know, Billy is her son. So Billy is the little boy she's holding in that photo. And when she first came in, she said her ideal reader was Billy. You know, this book was for him. They lost her husband and his dad when he was only 10 months old to cancer. So she said, you know, this book is for Billy. It's going to capture, you know, their love story, the parents' love story, and obviously having what they went through with the diagnosis and his passing, and how she was able to find herself and her feet again after he was gone, because he was too young to understand. So, but when going through the 5 whys and identifying her ideal reader, Leah actually realized that she wanted to write this book for other young widows, particularly other young widows who've lost their partners to cancer. So that took on a whole new purpose, and it's such a beautiful book. The thing with USPs, or unique selling points, with memoir or autobiography, is that quite often that USP is your story. So you don't have to think too much outside the box. Anything in the self-help or how-to realm, you know, you need to kind of put a bit more of a business spin on it. But for memoir and autobiography, 99% of the time, it's your lived experience and your story that's going to make it unique. So we often have overlapping experiences, but the way that you've experienced it is unique. So that's all the work done for you if you're in that realm. Woohoo! So if you are still a little bit unsure about what your USP looks like, how you can make yourself really stand out in the market, I've just got a few other things for you to think about here. So the first is to just think about your purpose and your promise. So you know your purpose because you've done your activity, haven't you? So then think about what the promise is to your reader. And what I mean by that is, you know, what is the transformation or the insight or the benefit for your reader, as in what's in it for them? What are they going to take away from your book? Is there a specific problem that you solve, or and some kind of journey that you offer that's going to be unique to your book? You've got your ideal reader or your niche. So you've already nailed that as well with your activity. So being tap into that. Are you communicating with a niche market that is often overlooked? You know, that in itself can be a USP. Look at your personal edge, as I just mentioned. You know, what is unique about your story? So I was just chatting to a lovely lady named Katie yesterday. She was saying she wanted to write a story about, you know, a spiritual awakening that she had. And she goes, oh, but there's so many books out there on that. But then she told me she had hers while she was on a cycling trip through the Middle East. And I'm like, man, Katie, that's your USP. Like, there's not many people that would have done that. So, yeah, think about what it is about your story that's unique. Oh, excuse me. For how-to or business style books, is there a gap in the market, or is there something that you've experienced or you know that no one's talking about yet? You know, that's exciting. Step into that space. And then lastly, the emotional hook or reader connection. So, you know how important it is to connect to your reader. And people do buy very largely on emotion rather than logic. So have a think about, what sort of feelings does your book evoke? Are you going for a theme of hope or courage or clarity for them or empowerment? What does that look like for you, and how can you tap into that as your USP? So that's just some food for thought. There is a little thing on your workbook there that you can have a bit of a play with this. You might be surprised what you can uncover. It's very, very exciting times. All right, so for those of you who have been wondering when I'm going to get to this point, these are the tips to beat the blank page. Now, there's always a method to my madness, and the reason why I've given you those two filters and got you to think about your genre and where you sit in the market and what it is that makes your book unique is because we now have those really strong foundations in place, right? You're not just whacking words on a page and hoping for the best. You have a really strong understanding now of what it is that's going to make your book great and what sort of things are going to be relevant to include. So there's always a method to my madness. Thank you for coming along for the ride. We are going to jump into some tips on how to beat the blank page, because I know there's some of you that are like, just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do. So this is for you. Again, some of these you would be aware of, you might have seen them before, but sometimes it's good to get a reminder, especially when we're in this headspace of we've carved out time to work on our books. So these are some tried and tested techniques that can help. So the first is to determine what kind of creative you are. So I find that people fall into one of two camps. They're either structure based, and by that, I mean you love carving out time in your calendar. You need to know that there's time dedicated for your writing practice. You need to have that planned in advance. I know there's some of you that are like, yes, that's me. And there's others that are breaking into a cold sweat just thinking about crafting time for writing. So if you are the latter, you fall into the freewheeler category. Now, the great thing is that you don't have to try and fit yourself into someone else's box. So if you are a structured type of writer, by all means, carve that time out in your calendar, set it aside, plan it in advance. One other thing I would encourage you to do is to just have a little mindset shift on how you're putting it into your calendar. So instead of just putting writing time, um, put in a meeting with your ideal reader. So when I put in time, I'll say, yep, meeting with Kelly. And for me, I know that means, yes, it's time to write, but B, it's time for me to to dedicate this time to my ideal reader, because that makes it sound way more important, right? We can trick our brains with these little things. Sounds way more important. We are more inclined to show up. The washing might not be as important because Kelly needs to know this information, right? The washing can wait. So just little things like that can really help you to prioritize your writing practice and make it more exciting too than just sitting down to write for the blank-faced everyone. We are sitting down to write for our ideal reader, and they're waiting for your book, so they need to have you write it for them. Now, if you are more of a freewheeler, that's where you would move into setting, achievable goals rather than time goals. So that's where we would move into, say, if we're working towards a week. Yes, I would like to, by the end of this 7-day block, I would like to have written X amount of words, or maybe completed a chapter, whatever that looks like for you. But just having these little goals with a wider time frame will help the freewheelers to be creative when they feel creative while still being accountable. So that's the little switch that needs to happen. I love getting into flow. I love writers who write, who wait for that flow, but we also need to be accountable. Otherwise, you could be spending years writing your book. So we want to try and tap into that momentum and keep that going as much as possible. Um, Plus, momentum equals confidence. So the more you sit down to write, there's the other C word. When you sit down to write, the more you do it, the more confident you become in your storytelling abilities. So it's a self-generating machine, if you like, that you can keep going. The third point I've got here is to have a dedicated writing space. So I'm really fortunate that where I am right now, this is my workspace, this is my creative space. Um, I've filled it with things that bring me joy. I've got paintings, I've got pictures from my kids, I've got crystals, I've got candles, I've got books everywhere. This is my happy space. But I know for some of you, especially first time writers, you might be trying to write in the same space that you do your taxes, or that you do the payroll, or that do all of the I guess the more analytical things in your life. And some I have found with authors in the past that can be literally the biggest barrier, and that's what's creating the blank page for them, because they're trying to be creative and in this different space where energetically it's all business. Um, so if you're finding that it is hard, that the blank page is really hard to break through, try changing it up. The beautiful thing about being a writer is that all you need is your laptop, maybe a power cord, and you're portable. You can go anywhere. So if that is hard to write at home, do the stereotypical thing and go to the cafe and get a coffee and sit in a corner for the day. Go down, if you like having your feet in the grass, or your feet on the sand, or your feet in the water, go to those places. I had another author who was trying so hard to work from home, but the minute she walked into the local library and just sat in a little corner, the words just flowed. So try a different environment if the one that you're in is not working for you now. Then I've got find your pre-writing ritual. So that sounds a bit exotic, but really it is just, again, conditioning your brain to know that it's time to write. So it doesn't have to be anything fantastical. For me, it's literally going to the kitchen, boiling the jug, pouring myself a cup of tea, and then coming back to my workspace and lighting a candle. That's all I do. And that's enough for my brain to go, yep, okay, it's writing time. So the more you can do those same things in sequence, the more your brain goes, yep, okay, I'm switching from, the to-do list over to writing for Kelly. So for people like Stu, he's former military, exercise is a huge part of his life. So his pre-writing ritual was to go for a run. There's others who are very spiritual. So before they sit down to write, they might do a meditation, or do a prayer. So it can look very different for each of you, but just tapping into what that could be the key to unlocking that, being able to move into flow quicker and beating that blank page, because that's what we're all about here today. Um, so the next one is to create a structure. So as much as writing is creative, it is flow, it is all those things. I am a staunch believer in having a structure, or at least a blueprint behind that, so that you are writing with purpose. So I can spend a whole session on that, but what you can do if it's structure that you're really struggling with, grab a copy of The Structured Author. As I said, it's on Amazon. You can get the paperback, ebook, Kindle Unlimited for free if you are a subscriber. So that will step you through how to create a structure for your book. And believe me, once you've got that in place, your whole world opens up, because you no longer have to write from start to finish, right? So if we are writing memoirs, autobiographies, things that are very personal to us, I often find that some authors will get to the hard part and stop because they don't see a way past that. Whereas if you've got a structure in place, you can dip into any part of your story. So if you're getting to the hard bit and you're going, this is a bit too hard to get through right now, you can jump forward or you can skip back and work on areas that, bring you joy or that are a bit more easy to write, and then come back to the tough bits when you're feeling emotionally stronger. So it creates so much more freedom and flow in your writing experience. Um, and lastly, seek accountability. So I know you guys are already doing that in the Women in Publishing Summit, which is incredible. So yeah, seek out your community, let people know that you're writing your book. Some people are scared of that because they don't want the elbow at the barbecue going, hey, how's your book writing going? And they're going, oh, actually, I haven't looked at it for a month. But accountability is power. So you might feel a little bit guilty for a second, but then you can go, right, okay, this is the universe telling me I need to get back to it and get back to it. So yeah, be brave, look for accountability, show up at these amazing networking events we have, Alexa has through the summit. And yeah, and don't be afraid. You don't have to do this journey alone. You've got a whole world out there of like-minded people on the same journey as you. Make sure you tap into them and get that strength in numbers, peeps. All right, so the last thing I wanted to say is to make sure that you stay flexible and be kind to yourself. So there's going to be bumps and hurdles. You've got some really great strategies now up your sleeve to help beat the blank page. You've got your 2 filters, you know your subgenre, you know how your book is unique, and you've got some tips to beat that writer's block when it comes up. So you've got all the things there. Be flexible, be adaptable, and be kind to yourself, because especially if this is your first time, things are going to happen. Nothing's going to be perfect. But as long as you keep the momentum going, keep getting the words down, you will be able to create something absolutely fabulous. So I want to thank you all for your time today. Here's a little reminder to download the workbook. Little sneaky peek, I am in the process of creating a writers community as well, so very, very early stages of building that up. But if you download the webinar workbook, or if you reach out to me through my website, I would love to keep you in the loop of when that's going to be opening, so that you can jump in and be part of the community and have my professional support with writing your first draft, or even your second draft, or even publishing your book. So we like to try and meet people where they're at. So it's been incredible to connect with you all today, and I would love to see if there's any questions outstanding. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, I know we had a few people that had to kind of leave because they were watching during work. I'm going to drop your website, a link there that we have through us, to go to your website and connect that way. I don't see any questions right now, but I feel like a lot of people, once they start working through the workbook and putting the practices that you were teaching into motion, I have a feeling they are going to have more questions about those. But I do love the idea of, the ideal reader, but we've all heard that, but to really like give it a name and make it like a person, I feel like that really kind of like it gives you someone to talk to instead of just kind of screaming into the void.
That's right. Oh, that's a beautiful way of putting it. Thank you,
Yes, I love it. But I also was wondering too, for your structuring book, the book you had for the author structure, is that more for nonfiction, or can that kind of be used for fiction as well?
Yeah, it's definitely in the nonfiction realm. That's my genius zone. So that's where I work. That's where I've had my professional career. So yeah, definitely for nonfiction. But I know that there's a whole world of amazing resources out there for novelists and people that create something from nothing. I have a lot of respect for people who work in the fiction genre. It's incredible what everyone can come up with. So
I
yeah.
know, I know. I read stuff sometimes and I'm like, whose brain did this like that's a whole world. You literally created
I
a whole
know.
world with your brain.
It's incredible.
Um,
Maybe I'll do that one day, but for now, yeah.
yeah, somebody did comment on the chat. Thank you so much for the in-depth and different perspective on finding the ideal reader, what we were just discussing, especially scheduling writing time as a meeting with your ideal reader. Because I do that as well. I have a very difficult time putting butt in chair, so to speak. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think putting that on my calendar, like it's an appointment.
that's right. And I think prioritizing your writing is the main thing there. So I feel like when you're accountable to an ideal reader, even if they're not sitting in front of you physically, it just helps you to, wait for the washing to do later, wait for, the things that we tend to fill our time with because we're procrastinating, right? So when something becomes a priority, you make the time for it and you dedicate yourself to it. So that's
I mean, yeah,
that's the
any
question.
tips and tricks that will trick my ADHD brain into doing what it's supposed to be doing is fantastic.
Absolutely.
And as well, the oh, what was the other thing I saw that I wanted to talk about? The routines, having the pre-writing ritual. I always
Hmm.
find that super fascinating because I equate it to like when you're teaching, trying to get your kids to go to bed at night. It's like
Yes.
bath, book, bedtime, and
Yes.
or whatever your ritual is. It's because our brains like that structure. Our brains like when we know what happens next,
Hmm.
it's like a relaxing kind of thing. So, if it's for me, I make a cup of tea, I come into my office, I put on a certain playlist, like it triggers your brain into thinking, okay, we're doing this now. Okay,
That's
perfect.
right. Yeah, yeah,
That's
absolutely. It's rather
fantastic.
than, yeah, when you think about it, yeah, from, I guess, yeah, from a brain point of view, it's like your brain's busy doing all these things and then you expect it to sit down and go, okay, right now. So it's like easing yourself into it. Yeah.
Do the thing. Oh,
Yeah.
that made me think of Shrek. Do the roar. Do the roar. Okay, no, yeah, great. Lots and lots of compliments in the chat about wonderful lessons and a wonderful presentation. And I want to thank you for being here and being such a great supporter for our community and such a great resource. The link is in the chat if anybody wants to go ahead and give that a click. And we have the QR code for the workbook as well. If you wanted to grab that, hopefully you did. And I'm sure that will be in our dashboard somewhere. We have so many
Yeah,
different
it'll be with all the
resources.
things. Yeah.
Yes, all of the things. So thank you for coming today. Again, I apologize for the internet hiccup first thing to get started, but we got there.
Totally fine. It's all good. Yes, it's
All
yeah, it was
right.
awesome to join you all. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for presenting. Everyone enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.